Good morning. So a viewer suggested I do a video on starting a bonsai from seeds and cuttings, and I really like that idea, thank you, because it's a topic that comes up a lot on the internet. Specifically, I want to talk about one reason maybe why you don't want to do that, or something to be aware of really, and then two reasons why I think it's a good idea to start bonsai from seeds and cuttings. So this is pretty popular with beginners. I see it a lot on the internet where um, somebody who's not familiar with bonsai but is excited about it, posts something along the lines of, "Oh, I bought this seed kit. I'm really excited to grow this into a bonsai tree." Or they found a little seedling in their backyard and they're super excited to turn it into a bonsai tree. And then usually somebody responds. It's usually a more experienced bonsai person, and I think they're often well-meaning, and really they're correct because they come back and say, "Well, that's going to take a long time." I'm kind of sympathetic to both sides because I feel like sometimes those new bonsai folks are maybe could be discouraged by that reply and abandon the effort. At the same time, I kind of agree with what the more experienced bonsai people say, that it's going to take a long time. So that's kind of my one caution against this, and maybe you want to think about starting bonsai another way, and that is just it's going to take a while. And I'll just throw out, this is just a vague number that could really vary widely depending on how well you can grow plants. It'll take like a decade maybe to turn a seed into like something that looks like a bonsai or a miniature tree. And that really depends too on how complex you want your tree to be. I guess if you want to make something small, then yeah, you could start with a seed and have something maybe in a few years that looks kind of like a bonsai. But generally, it's just going to take a while. So that's just something. I'm not like trying to discourage anybody from doing that. I think you should do you. If you want to grow a bonsai from a seed, grow a bonsai from a seed. Don't let the bonsai establishment tell you what you can or cannot do. If you want to do it, you should try it. So, two reasons why maybe you do want to grow bonsai from a seed. One of those reasons is if you want to develop a bonsai from a specific variety, these varieties are created from cuttings, they're clones. So for instance, this is something I created or am creating from a cutting. This is a tree I've ranted about, I feel like, many times because I love this variety. This is the Thuja occidentalis primo variety. It has this tight little foliage that you can only start bonsai this way from a cutting from the parent plant. It's a clone. So that's one reason why cuttings are great, and why so many bonsai are started from cuttings, because they're clones of each other. All these Japanese maple varieties, they're all started from cuttings. Nothing's from a seed, and you can't just go up and dig up that specific variety in the forest. It's a cultivar that's been cultivated. Here's another one this is a juniper, a Kishu juniper. It's a specific variety of juniper that was created from a cutting. I bought it as a cutting and I'm continuing to develop it. And then the second reason, and I can kind of demonstrate with this tree again, is you have complete control over the process from the beginning. And I think that's why a lot of people like the idea of starting from just ground zero. They want to be there for the whole process, and perhaps you want control over the whole process. So with this cutting, I was able to put this wire on it early on in its life to give that trunk some bend. And if I hadn't started with a tiny little cutting like I did, it would get too old and you couldn't do it. Same thing again with this Kishu juniper. One reason I bought this tree from Eric at Bonsai is I wanted this variety, which I couldn't find anywhere else, and these are pre-wired. So at a very young age, just like this plant I'm doing with my Thuja, he put wire on it to put some neat character into that trunk. So you can start developing trunks with character, and I like small bonsai. And that's, if you are going to go the route of a seed or a cutting, then maybe, especially for a beginner, maybe aim for something small. Because if you want a big tree, you're definitely going to want to just grow that thing out for like 5 or 10 years before you even start training it. Whereas with these young trees, you can start training from an earlier age, putting bends in it, and manipulating them. So that's two reasons. So now I'll just kind of step through and show some projects I have going that I've started from very young material. So I'll start with these two plants again that I already talked about just now. But this is a cutting, this thuja right here. This is probably, I think it's 2 to 3 years into the process. So I took a cutting in late spring, early summer, just stuck it in the ground, let it grow for a whole year. Then I think the second year I put this wire on it to put some cool movement into the trunk. Then I just left it for another year, I think. And then this spring, so I think the third year here with this, my son, I think actually he claimed this tree and he said, hey, can we put that in a pot? That's a cool tree. And I was like, well, sure, why not? I was going to just let it grow out for another year or two in the ground, but I put it in the pot and I actually kind of like it. And yeah, I'm actually pretty excited about this project. Although I guess officially it is my son's tree. He's going to get all my trees eventually. He's spoken for them. So that's the plan. Anyway, so that's about 3 years in. And here is the Kishu juniper from bonsai.com. And you know, if I trim this up right now, I could actually make this into something kind of cool. But the trunk is pretty thin. It's even thinner than this thuja. So I just let it grow and adjust to my climate because it came from the Bay Area, California. But grew well. And so what this was bought as a 2-year cutting. So I think Eric at Bonsai did pretty much what I described with this one. Early on, put some movement into the trunk with wire. I rewired it to get more movement and put some twists and turns. So yeah, you can do that with these cuttings. You can wire them early. And of course, both these trees I'm going to keep very small. Eventually this will go into a small pot. So yeah, that's about 3 years in. So this is about 3 years of work. And here's some other stuff. This is just stuff I got from my yard. So these are little elm seedlings. And I've just been dying to trim these. I'm waiting for the leaves to start senescing before I do that. It's just not the right time. But yeah, you can see these thin little trunks. These are just little seedlings I got from my yard. And again, it's a small composition that I'm envisioning. And I put movement into these trunks as well with wire. I just removed the wire because I felt like it had been on long enough and it's starting to bite in just a bit. But yeah, again, I trained these. I'm going to wire them again, I think, this spring to put more movement and just have complete control over the trunk. So that is what's really nice, having complete control. Here's an oak. This was also found in my yard, and this is probably again about 3 years from an acorn. So you can see it's small. But I've been dying to trim this one too. I got this second flush of growth. And I have gotten really good reduction of the leaves, as you can see, by keeping it in this small pot. So again, I envision a small tree. I'm going to cut all this stuff off come fall and just keep this really small. And I remember too, the viewer specifically asked about Engelmann spruce. This is not an Engelmann spruce. This is what I believe is a Colorado blue spruce, another North American native. And this is my son's tree, the one I just mentioned, who has the most interest in bonsai and is set to inherit all my trees. I know I'm thinking a little far ahead. I hope I am, at least. I hope I have many years left. But anyway, this tree, man, if this tree could talk, it's been through so much. It gets repotted all the time because it is my son's tree, and I give him full, you know, it's very much his creation. I give him suggestions, and I sometimes have to tell him, like, you know, we can't repot the tree again. You just repotted it. It's the wrong time of year. But he just kind of follows his whims with this tree, and every once in a while he's like, I want to work on my tree. And then, you know, I give him free bench space. I water his tree for him. And yeah, he has it figured out because I just give him free care for his tree, and then he looks at it whenever he wants. But it's been through so many pots. But anyway, so this tree, we found it as just a tiny little seedling in our garden bed. And I think this is like 4 or 5 years. And really, it's not been growing for amazing growth. Obviously, my son wants to put in a bonsai pot right away. So it just kind of creeps along. But it's always been healthy. It's grown lots of nice new buds. He decided he was going to wire it a little bit this year. I helped him with that. He pruned a little bit of things off it this year. But again, yeah, this is like 4 or 5 years old, and if you're really trying to get better growth, you could. But yeah, it just to emphasize the fact that, like, it takes a while. If you take something from a tiny seedling, it's gonna take a while for it to turn into something. And here, what I'm looking at here is a sorbus or mountain ash, and all this growth is this year. I don't know, 1.5 meters. And so this is actually only its 3rd year, I think. So you can get good growth on young stuff. I think it's the trunk is this thick, and it's been, yeah, I think this is just its 3rd year. I found this again in this very grow box, let it grow, pruned it, then I think dug it up, planted it here so the roots wouldn't get too established, and then let it grow. I did a big chop here to build some taper and just movement, and I'm gonna chop it again, like here. So anyways, you can get good growth, and especially if you are going for growth, you want to start from a seedling, and you really do want to just grow that tree as fast as you can. Put in a big pot. Don't put in a bonsai pot like my son's doing with Little Blue, as he calls his Colorado blue spruce. Put it in the ground and just let it bulk up. And yeah, you can get something. I'm not too excited. It doesn't really have great leaves for bonsai. Obviously, these big, huge compound leaves. But I don't know. I love the red berries, and I'm just kind of playing with it. I don't know. But yeah, definitely gonna chop it in the fall.